Recording in progress.
Bill's got a clean. Ready, you want to get going, Bill?
Yes. Okay, Buildings and Ground Committee meeting, Tuesday, February 15th at 5:30 PM. We've had call to order, Pledge of Allegiance. We have a number of board members present today. We also have our architect of record, Mr. Hank Tassick. He's been here previously, I want to say a couple weeks ago. We did a presentation about Gateway Middle School. We have Bob Brown and, of course, some members of our central administration staff and Mr. Dice. Thank you for joining us tonight. One of the conversations, well, I should say the conversation we're going to have tonight centers around the flooring options for Gateway Middle School. Just to provide everyone with an overview, we are currently almost 7 months into the project. One of the issues that we're faced with is choosing the flooring option for both the hallways and intersections at Gateway Middle School. Initially, whenever the bid process took place, there were a lot of unknowns with COVID and the impact of resources within the district. At that point in time, the district made a decision to go conservative with vinyl flooring tile. Once we've made that decision, of course, you know, things have looked differently over the last couple of years. Mr. Schott does have some information related to the resources and where we stand as a district. But one thing that we've been able to do is examine over the course of the last couple of years our vinyl flooring tile that we have in other buildings and other areas within the district. First and foremost, we established a project at CSE, Cleveland Stewart, nearly 10 years ago, where we added the back hallway, back wing, library. And at that point in time, there was carpet throughout the building. And I say carpet, yes, carpet. And that carpet was removed and vinyl flooring tile was placed both in the entranceway and in the hallways. Bob Brown does have some pictures of the vinyl flooring tile. And Bob, I think you provided those to Maiko.
Yes.
I don't know if you want to have Maiko pull those up. I saw Maiko here. So we're able to provide the public with what is currently a 10, 11-year-old floor at Cleveland Stewart Elementary, but also it needs to be known that the conditions began to, we'll say, crack and appear rather old looking within 5 to 7 years. Bob did take some pictures and he's going to pull those up just to show the viewing public. And after Bob does that, I'll invite Hank to provide an overview of different flooring options that he has used in multiple buildings over the.
Also brought some samples.
Oh, did he? That's perfect. If you want to pass those around to the board.
That is what we were able to see last week. I'm going to stand up this way to see my go.
So these samples, this is a new tile, and this is one that was taken off of the floor. You can see how it yellows and changes in a little bit of time.
Should just smell that.
I don't need to.
Hank, while Mike is pulling it up, maybe I can have you talk about flooring options and what you've done in the past at schools.
Okay. As Dr. Short had mentioned, the goal and original hope was that the corridors of this building would be epoxy terrazzo. And we came to that conclusion after we went around and toured other buildings that we've done and showed them the different options that there are. And the three main options for flooring, well, actually there's four main options for flooring in corridors are carpeting, which Gateway did not want to have, vinyl composite tile, VCT, that's the piece that's being shown around, rubber flooring, or epoxy terrazzo. And the epoxy terrazzo is the most durable and the easiest to maintain out of all of those options. But it's also the most costly of those options. And when we again, like Dr. Short had said, with the unknowns with COVID and what was going on, the board had decided at the time not to take the base bid, which was epoxy terrazzo, at this project, but instead took a deduct alternate to go to vinyl composite tile in all of the corridors. And that's what we're here to revisit. And so the similarities between vinyl composite tile and the epoxy terrazzo that we're talking about, we do have designs in the floor, and the designs in the floor and the colors in the floor would be similar whether it's epoxy terrazzo or vinyl composite tile. So there is going to be some type of design in the floor either way.
I think Mrs. Delaney had a question about that whenever she was examining the terrazzo floor in the cafeteria. You had asked about, you know, the different colors and shapes and designs.
Yeah, it's something modernistic, so because that's so dated, of course, what they have. I didn't know if that's
Yes, we
just
have. We've
traditional
included-
to have that.
We've included a pattern, and we've kind of mirrored that pattern in some of the work that we're doing in the ceiling as well. So there's a pattern in the ceiling and a pattern in the floor that kind of mirror each other.
Will we
And
get
that
to
was-
see any of that?
Do we have?
I don't know if we have the drawings here.
I
but
have a little
At some
drawing
point.
here that we can pass around.
Yeah, at some point. It didn't have to be now. Yeah.
This drawing really doesn't do it justice because it's tiny. But actually, let me see if the other one is any better. I'll pass this drawing around. The yellow areas in this drawing are the areas we're talking about putting the epoxy terrazzo in. So that when we're looking, we can see that. But the cafeteria is this area with the crosshatch pattern there. And it's different, it's multiple colors of terrazzo in that area. And then the ceiling will kind of mirror what's happening there.
You said there was 4 options. What is rubber flooring?
Rubber flooring it comes in tiles like the
This is
VCT, but they're usually a little bit bigger, 2 foot by 2 foot tiles. They're the same thickness. They're rubber, so they're more flexible, so it doesn't quite crack as much as this does, as the VCT does. But it does. If you get a crack in the floor below, or there's unevenness in the floor below, it transposes up through very, very easily. So anything that's in the subfloor, you see in the rubber.
Now,
So
what
that
is
would be
this?
harder to clean and maintain.
And what we have, Micah was able to put up on the board screen, I should say, the example of the vinyl tile, which were the pieces that we passed around. If you look up, this is actually inside Cleveland Stewart Elementary.
Oh, okay.
So as you walk through the building, you would see the cracking of the tile. That's at the main entrance when you walk in.
Just went there today, but I didn't look down.
Yeah. If you would be able to, there it is, you can see how it's cracked, yellowed.
So, Dr. Shore, we've talked about this for a couple of days now, and each time you do this, I'm reminded again that that floor looks horrible. So is that anywhere in our plan to fix Cleveland Stewart, which is only
Yes, it
going to
is.
get worse?
Absolutely, that is in
Okay.
our plan. The tile itself, as, you know, Mr. Bowman had said, I mean, we're talking, it started to appear like that within 7 years. And to me, that's unacceptable. When we, and I'm not sure, Hank, if you're able to maybe describe how that's laid, is it placed exactly on a concrete floor, the vinyl tile?
It is, and a lot of the condition of a vinyl floor is dependent on how the subfloor, the condition of the subfloor. I mean, a renovation project, the subfloors are always a little bit more beat up than it is in new construction. So you can only do so much to fix the subfloor. You can float the subfloor with a floor leveling compound. You can put some mesh, some fiberglass mesh in where there's cracks to kind of help bridge that. But eventually, in vinyl tile, it's going to look like that. That crack is going to come up through the tile. And one of the main reasons is vinyl composite. VCT stands for vinyl composite tile. And at one point, there was a lot more vinyl in the vinyl composite tiles than there are today. And the vinyl helps it be a little more flexible. Without enough vinyl content, they become very brittle, and they crack, and they show the cracks very, very easily. So a vinyl tile from 30 years ago is not the same animal that a vinyl tile today is.
So we got this 7 years ago. What kind
That-
did,
10, 11
okay,
years.
but was there any kind of guarantee of anything, and like you have warranty or some kind of guarantee of a certain time frame?
There is, but with vinyl tile, it's either a 1 year, a 3 year, or a 5 year warranty.
okay.
It's not, there
Yeah.
aren't 10 or 20 year warranties
Oh,
for the
okay.
tile.
And as you can tell from this picture, Bob, after having a couple of pieces replaced, due to the wear of the existing floor, you can tell that the new tile doesn't match the old tile. So a lot of issues with that floor. It's something that we've seen in other buildings and other places. One of the areas that we did visit, I believe the tank was Latrobe Elementary, which had a different rubber floor and some terrazzo.
Yes, and that's one of the schools that we looked at, and there was a question earlier that I didn't get to the answer of, and the question was, is rubber floor easier to maintain than the vinyl flooring? And the industry seems to think it is, and that was kind of our impression, but after Latrobe Elementary School had they have rubber flooring in their classrooms, and they have epoxy terrazzo in their corridors. And so we went and we looked at this project after it was 2 or 3 years old, and the maintenance people and the director of facilities over there, who really pushed for the rubber in the classrooms, has decided that the rubber is harder for them to maintain than the vinyl tile is, and certainly much harder to maintain than what the epoxy terrazzo is.
I just wonder now, because I've had a lot of renovation done, and they're using the newer interlock vinyl tiles and all, and they seem to think they'll last a long time, probably because I won't have the kind of traffic
Yeah,
that you would
those are
have.
called-
I don't know if it's any different.
That product is
than-
a little different. That's called a luxury vinyl tile
Okay.
or luxury vinyl plank. And they are more residential in quality than what these tiles are.
This is more
They-
commercial or
This is
some,
more of a commercial grade tile. It's supposed to hold up better than
Yeah.
the luxury vinyl will in a commercial setting.
So probably in one day, one of these corridors gets as much traffic as your house would in a year. Well, I was gonna say far more than that, because there's, 100, 200 kids.
well, I'd be in
walking back.
trouble.
And these
If
things.
your floor was in this hall, it wouldn't last. I'm sure you're getting great stuff, but because it's residential design, it would last, a couple
Right,
months.
you're
or
not
years.
driving large scrubbing machines over your floors in a resident, and here in the
Yeah.
schools, it's heavy duty stuff that happens.
And then multiply times 4 the amount of students, parents, sometimes definitely the staff, that would utilize the hallways at Gateway Middle School compared with CSC.
And much more now because,
Absolutely.
Of the
And if,
athletics and all the other schools coming in and
as we pointed out
auditorium.
over here at Gateway High School, we've had terrazzo in place since the place was born in 1958.
wow.
So there's really been no issues. It's just polished and shined up and looks incredible.
And was the reason you changed expense?
At the time, yes, because we were going through this 2 years ago, the unknown of what's going to happen with COVID and the resources and the funding, because there were so many variables at that point in time.
Is there a guarantee on this floor?
Yes, there is. Doug, do you happen to know off the top of your head what the spec is?
No, I can look it up while you go over other things.
And Doug, is that, terrazzo is just poured over the regular concrete floors over at Gateway Middle?
Yes. The way terrazzo was placed.
Could you speak into the microphone so the people at home could hear your comments, please?
Yeah, very briefly. Terrazzo is an epoxy aggregate mixture. It's placed, it's poured on the concrete floor.
We actually have some pictures describing or showing how,
Yeah, there you are. And for the corridors, I think, Hank, they're monolithic, correct?
Well, the corridors that have
There's no pattern.
patterns have patterns.
Okay, so no
different
pattern.
floors.
So if we go back, there was another slide.
Go
Up a
back.
bit. Yeah, right there.
Right there.
Now, monolithic means it's just poured wall to wall, one color. What they've done here is put in metal strips that act as joints, if you will. And they pour one color inside of one set of joints, and pour another color in another. And so it gives you pattern. And that's what Hank was passing around with the cafeteria in particular. So your end product is continuous monolithic between those metal joints. And it's frankly, it's a much more durable product because it
The
is.
end product is a picture of it up there.
Yeah, you see different colors, different patterns. We're not getting quite that involved, but it is something that has interest to it.
Some other pictures, there's some other pictures, Mike, of some terrazzo.
One of the problems you have with any kind of tile flooring, like VCT, rubber, what have you, when you clean it, water will find its way into the joints, and it will start to peel up and fail at that point. And that's if you have a good subfloor. If concrete's cracked, like we have in the renovation projects, then that telegraphs through. So with this product, you're looking at usually a 20-year life before you have to do anything with it. And frankly, I've been in projects where we've renovated it after that time and just kept the floor and went on top of it with whatever else we were doing.
So we're spending double the money for a minimum of 4 to 5 times the time frame of what that tile is with a better outcome.
At least twice. I would probably go toward 3 times.
Well, if we were going 5 or 7 years and you're
Oh,
talking
5 or
20.
7, okay, I'm thinking.
Yeah, from the tile was 5 to,
We're 7-year-old tile. and
Okay.
So
we're
7,
down to 7
5
years.
times that is 35, so easily.
okay, then there is a warranty and it will be modernized.
Yes.
Any negatives? Other than the price, but.
So, Dr.
If
Short, you
you're
would,
paying for
someone
what you
had a
get.
chart
It's expensive.
that compared the purchase price of the vinyl versus the purchase price of the terrazzo, and then essentially amortized it over the 40 or 50 years that it would exist and the maintenance cost. So although it appears to be far more expensive up front, 40 years from now, in retrospect, it will actually appear to be cheaper.
Far cheaper. And that was with a turnover time, I believe, of 15, 20 years. And that was from an area that is not weatherized, such as Western Pennsylvania. So when we do it here, in all theory, we could be replacing the vinyl tile every 10 years. Because when you look at CSE, it's really a shame that building went through that renovation 10 years ago and the floors look the way they did.
Okay.
So if I'm blessed to live another 40 years, I'm holding you to this.
You know, I was doing it and I realized that was not gonna be the case. So I'm counting on you.
Oh, sure.
So you can see, as Mike goes going through here, this is pictures from various school districts that have installed the terrazzo, and designs are pretty much endless in what they can do. But
And this is more labor intensive to put in than would be the tile, like it's with the sanding and the, yeah, okay, finishing. So that is also adds to the price increase too.
So do you have the actual numbers for us, what we're going from and to?
We got them last week, didn't we?
Paul Schott has an update as well. And is that you, Paul?
Yeah, no, I'm here.
Okay, great.
Well, it's-
Just interject here and provide some initial upfront numbers, and Paul, I'll allow you to kind of take it from there. But when we bid the entire project for the vinyl tile, I believe roughly around 450, 460,000 for installation, compared with the terrazzo, which came in around 1.4 initially. That is when we decided to go with the vinyl tile. That was the number that we were working from, trying to get the terrazzo in play for this project. And Paul, you have some information?
Yeah, so currently, what we're looking at is a total change order of $1,621,000 and 12. 1621012. That would be the adjustment from replacing some of the VCT, the vinyl composite tile flooring with the epoxy terrazzo flooring. So one of the things getting that number that I was tasked with was looking at our construction fund. And again, just as everyone remember, we took out $45 million in bonds. So $45 million was deposited to the construction fund from when we looked and awarded and rolled out with the bonds last year. And we had the detail of everything that we were estimating as far as what would be required for the Gateway Middle School project and our fields projects. So there were contingency funds built in and some other estimates that were built in. So again, as was stated at the beginning, we were about 7 months into the project. So we are encountering unexpected soft costs, various change orders as we get further and further into the demolition and rebuilding of Gateway Middle School. So I basically took a look at over the last several days the change orders that have been officially approved and all the pending change orders that we've had numbers with, just trying to take a look at, what would we be looking at, assuming we would take all those change orders at this particular day. So basically, in a nutshell, the question is, well, where does the $1.6 million come from? So as of what I'm showing on my spreadsheet, $1 million would come out of the contingency fund. The other $621,000 would come out of a portion of money we have set aside, specifically $1 million for new furniture, which we know we won't spend the entire $1 million for that. So the second question would be, okay, Paul, what about any other unknowns that we may encounter either on those two projects? Well, there's still some numbers that are in play in what we're calling our budget for these projects that could take up the slack for that. But ultimately, as a worst case scenario, at the end of the day, we get to say the last 5-6 months of the project, of both projects, paying out contractors' final retainage amounts, et cetera, for that. Ultimately, if we would exceed the $45 million, the general fund will ultimately, specifically the fund balance in the general fund, would pick up the slack and be able to take care of any additional expenditures or any other unforeseen circumstances as required for that. And my plan would be for 22-23 budget, which we're working on right now, and also the 23-24 budget, to build in some funds in each of those budgets, which would be offsetting an expenditure and utilization of fund balance to possibly take that into account. Basically, doing that in terms of structurally building the budget is to have those items built in there so we do not exceed the budget in terms of expenditures. But again, when we know of potential items, we always try to, again, be conservative and build that in there so we're not running into problems at the end of any fiscal year with exceeding our expenditures that were originally budgeted for.
Oh, it's Leslie. What is the difference between the original tile and what the terrazzo is? What is the price difference?
I don't have that exact amount. I think other than, unless Doug would happen to have that maybe offhand, I think it was the 441,000.
So we need another 1.6 million in addition to that 400,000?
That would be
Yes.
Included.
1, 2.
Yes?
Yes.
Yes.
That's a total change order.
So we're taking the original 400 and some thousand and adding 1.6 million to bring us up to 2?
Yes.
That was not what I saw in our charts.
Yeah, I thought it was a difference.
Yeah,
in-
that's why those numbers were off.
Paul, I need you to go back, look at those numbers again, and come back with something that makes us just a little happier than that. Because that's not what we.
That's all the numbers I have.
We were under the impression that it was the 400,000
Included.
and then we needed an additional, give or take, 600,000 or 700,000 No,
No, I wish that was the case.
that wasn't the numbers.
Dr. Short is conferring right now. Everyone, hold on a moment while we see what happened here.
Let's make a deal.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not what I.
That wasn't the, right, that's why I asked. It wasn't making sense to me.
Yeah, we'll confirm out of that 400,000.
Could you speak in the mic so the folks at home could hear, please?
With Doug here, we will confirm out of that $440,000 what the district is getting back from not following through with the purchase of all the vinyl tile. So once we do that, we can then come back and determine the difference between the two.
So we didn't purchase, so we're not in default of having
We
purchased.
did purchase the
I see.
vinyl tile that would be used for CSE.
Oh,
So we
Yes.
need the 1.6 million to cover the cost of the terrazzo and return the tile and see what that brings in, which is not a
Well,
variable.
no. Go ahead.
The plan would be that we use the tile that we purchased from the middle school project to replace the tile at Cleveland Stewart. So,
Plus, we have the wings that are not being used for terrazzo,
right.
setting off of Route 48.
Do we have enough tile to fix all of CSE? Okay, well, Jack, that answers your question about CSE,
I got you.
so that makes more sense.
Anyone else have any questions?
So the 400,000 covers CSE, the end of those couple of wings.
Yeah, if you notice on the drawing, there are wings that were not highlighted.
Yep. So then we won't have to look at
Nope.
what we would need for CSE.
Correct,
Okay, that, I feel better now.
yes.
So what are our next steps, please?
Well, at this point in time, do we have any questions concerning the terrazzo, change order?
Is that on the agenda for tonight to be voted on, terrazzo?
It is, yes.
Yeah, it is.
Did we get a cost estimate? With CSE, we have the tile. Who put that in? Did we put that in or does the contractor?
I would probably contract that out just based on time factor. We don't have that many guys, it's a lot of square footage.
Okay, so we will be looking at that added expense at some point.
Yes.
Okay,
I know it's late, but I know that I had a prior conversation with you about the board. So, but when we talked, I thought that we weren't doing terrazzo everywhere in Gateway Middle School.
Right.
We had cut some areas out to try to
Correct.
reduce the costs.
Yes.
Only put it in high traffic areas. So is that what still stands today?
there it is, right there.
Right here.
Do you have it?
Well, this one shows where we're not doing it, that one shows where we are doing it. Depends on which one it was. So,
Either
We
way.
can pass it both around. The one with the blue is the corridors that would not get the terrazzo. The one with the yellow is everything that does get the terrazzo.
Which include the high traffic areas.
How come we didn't do this in the first
It's
place?
just the cafeteria, right?
At that point in time, the unknown financially of where the district stood, we were moving into COVID. Revenue, business is closing. So at that point in time, it was really the recommendation to be conservative with the project with the floor. And again, not knowing, researching the vinyl tile and the impact of what we saw at Cleveland Stewart.
The vinyl tile doesn't last at all.
Were you here for the pictures?
I saw
You saw
them
them,
in your
yes.
office. They were all cracked within, what, 8 years?
7, 8 years,
7, 8 years, and the terrazzo floor lasts like 50.
correct,
At
We
least.
still have terrazzo floors that are in decent shape.
right outside here.
the question,
They're trying to save money.
so then
Yes, we're trying to
we still need to
get back
spend
to the
money
original bid
on a
price.
contractor for CSE in addition to this.
How much more, Valerie wants to know how much more to do the blue areas that are not on
And our guys can't do the job. What was that?
How much more to do
Valerie's
the
saying
blue
she
areas?
thinks these are high traffic areas. How much more is it to Avis? Do you know?
I mean,
Doug, do you have an answer for that?
Bob,
We could put a big ugly guess on it, but not a hard number for
I
it.
mean, why wouldn't you include those when that's what you're gonna be using every day?
We tried to keep it in the scope of what the original bid was.
Correct.
Yes.
But when you're gonna be looking at high traffic area, wouldn't that be considered high traffic?
The main hallways, yes.
Right.
And then going off into the wings would be kind of like a secondary.
It's not gonna get as much traffic as every single grade is gonna come up and down these big hallways.
Right.
So these are just gonna be kids going to those classrooms.
But you're looking at how many kids a
Still
day.
traffic, but
Right.
not as
Not
much,
as much.
not as much as the gym and the cafeteria.
What would be an ugly?
He doesn't know.
Another
He doesn't
about
want to say- anybody else
200,000,
want to say
maybe
this?
300,000.
We saw them.
Somewhere between $200,000 and $300,000 more to do everything.
I mean, you're talking.
Well, hey, the good news is COVID wasn't as bad as we thought financially.
Exactly.
So we have that.
Paul, what would another 200,000 or 300,000 look like? Other than red?
Well, in terms of the current construction fund, that would further reduce the portion we had allocated for new furniture out of the $1 million for that.
What's wrong with our old furniture?
Paul?
Well, there's going to be some of our old furniture that's going to be transferred to the building, but there is certain areas that are going to require new furniture, particular the cafeteria chairs
Right.
and the tables. We want to get identical ones to what we have in the high school because they've held up so well over the years. Correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Brown, I believe teacher desk was another identified priority as well.
It was.
And there are one or two spaces in this new building that don't exist in either the old buildings that take some specialty furniture, so there's a little bit of furniture that you have to buy for some of that.
If you could have it, would you put terrazzo in the wings?
Of course, it's gonna last
If I
longer.
had an open checkbook,
Yeah.
yes.
I'm just asking,
Of
would,
course, it's the most
Okay.
durable, best product,
Right.
but it's the most expensive,
but it's gonna last.
but it's gonna last.
It'd be
How
cheaper to
much
buy
tile
furniture
would
down the
we
road.
have left over after you did the tile in the new building and CSE?
I'm sorry, I didn't
much
hear the
left
first
over?
part.
Leftover tile, vinyl
They're
tile.
gonna take what they purchase and use it
How
for
much would we
Cleveland Stewart.
And there is a credit that we know will come from,
Square footage.
we don't know what it
For
is
us
yet,
to
so I don't
account.
wanna say anything from the,
There'll be a labor credit
yeah.
for installing this. The contractor that owns installing the VCT would provide a credit for that labor and the adhesive. And then the leftover VCT would be turned over to the district. Don't have quite a square foot number to be able to say would they be leftover or not, after you did the two projects you're speaking of.
So now, the only variable we have is what Ms. Warning has suggested, and basically leaving those areas tile is the same attempt at economy we had in the first place when we were talking about using tile. And the argument against it is the same argument that's being made right now for putting terrazzo on the floors. So, you know, there's nothing that we do that's less fun than spending people's money. That said, again, is there any chance that 30 or 40 years from now, someone's gonna say, geez, I wish we hadn't spent the extra 200,000 to terrazzo the whole floor? And I'm pretty confident the answer is no. Nobody's gonna say that.
It won't be
But
us.
someone's gonna say, well, it's gonna be you.
Yeah, right. It'll be 20 years
Then
from
you
now.
made it clear, it's gonna be you, Susan.
Yeah, okay.
But no one's gonna say, geez, I wish I'd have used that tile floor. So,
Spirit.
Talking 7-8 years, hopefully we're still here. I don't want to hear, oh, that floor is cracking or it's peeling or something like that.
One of the concerns that we found out, once we inspected areas within the district that had vinyl tile, when we walked into CSE, which we saw the pictures,
Right.
it's embarrassing, I'll be honest with you. And, you know, if we're going through a new project and essentially the floors may look like that in 7, 8, 9 years, then they might say, who put the vinyl tile in?
so what do we need to do to do what Ms. Warning has suggested, which is to terrazzo the entire thing? Do we need to get some new numbers? We can't do that tonight, right? Or is there any way to do that tonight? I assume time is of some essence.
We can vote on this, and then if we want to upgrade the others after we get another bid, we
Oh, can we
add
vote?
that.
We may have a number of.
Oh, now we got.
Sharpen your pencil a little.
Is there extra for the
Can we get a
difference?
Discount if we get even more?
No, usually it's like, how many colors, 2, 3, or 4?
This is the total number that you give us for doing 100% of everything with baseboard. 1.831. 104.
1.6 and now.
Yes, so
Talking 200,000.
about 200, it's actually $210,000 difference.
It was like 200, that was pretty good.
So I just saved you 90.
But you're talking 50,000 each hallway.
So Jack, this is John. We haven't talked about this yet, but the presentation of the floors and other things speak to the children, and it either calms them down or helps them focus or gives them a mindset that the school district doesn't care about them. So I am, of course, all of us are in favor of doing whatever looks spectacular, wonderful, helps the kids focus, gives them depth perception and distance, welcomes them as they walk into the school, wants to make them have a demeanor where they don't throw things on the floor, but they want to keep it nice. So without having said all that, I would just like to say I'm in favor of, go ahead now, biting the bullet, spending the extra money, taking the heat for it, and making this thing fascinating, with the colors and the design, fun, and if possible, non-fattening. That would be for me.
I agree.
Can we save a little money if we take those beautiful lockers at Moss Side Middle School that are
ones with the
painted
door- the
like
books.
books? And use those, take a little
I'm
walk.
keeping this.
I will say that those lockers at South Junior High School are the original, and Jack Bova utilized one of those
That is true.
during his 7th grade
But
year.
those books,
Absolutely true.
those books are a work of art.
They are.
So do we have any more discussion on this?
Anything else on the
To be
floor?
added?
Any on it, more questions for our experts?
Does anything needs to be changed on what we're voting on tonight?
Yeah, that we would have to.
Yes, you would have to be changed.
That number would have to change.
Do you have any eraser, Mr. Schott?
Well, like I said, it just will further reduce that amount. Actually, I do need Mr. Brown, if you could text that number to me so I can make an adjustment. I do have a resolution drafted up. I can change it to the 1,000,008 number. What would happen tonight in section F is after I've read the agenda items, I would read this item. The board would have to vote to place this item onto the agenda, and then it could be voted on with the rest of the section F agenda items for this evening.
All right, got it.
Public comment too,
Yeah, do we have any public comment on this?
because it's gonna change the agenda.
When we get there. Right.
You are correct. That's a good bingo, Jack.
Hold your card, Scotty. All right, do we have anything else?
That's it.
Just so I know, is the item on the agenda? Because if you're adding something to the agenda,
We're changing the amount.
so
I don't see it on.
We're adding it.
is on the agenda.
Adding, it's
No, it is not.
on here.
Well, how now, Paul, under the new Sunshine Law Act, do we add anything? I mean, that's the whole idea. You're not allowed to add it the day of the
Changing
meeting.
The price.
That's why
We
I'm
had to
saying-
have this meeting first before we knew what we were adding.
I got you. I understand that. Why, what I'm questioning is, how does this fit within the new law that says you can't supplement the agenda the day of the meeting? When I say that, if the item appears on the agenda and all you're doing is changing the price, then I think you can vote on that. But if it doesn't appear at all on the agenda, then I don't know how you vote on it tonight.
I thought
And we have to
Not
change
to
our own
interrupt.
school board policy, because we have a school board policy that's now not in line with what you're saying is the law, because we have a board policy.
The supermajority.
Yeah, that says if you add something the same day and you have a supermajority, it passes.
Now, if we only had a solicitor here who could tell us how this works.
If you're gonna tell me that the supermajority is gonna vote to do this, tell me that.
I can't do that till we vote.
Are
Okay,
you
well, let's
saying
get
that
there.
we can't even legally put it on now? I mean, because the board policy doesn't override the law.
That's correct.
So,
The law is that you're not allowed to add items to the agenda the day of the agenda, the day of the meeting.
then we can't do it.
Unless it appears somehow on the, and I don't know what it is on the agenda.
It's not, I'm looking at it.
The last time it is not on the.
Okay, well, I don't care what your board policy is then.
Right, so we actually have a board policy that we need to do away with because it's irrelevant.
Doesn't matter, I mean,
It's
we're not gonna,
contradictory to
we're not
the
gonna
law.
follow that. Yeah, sure, you should probably repeal it.
All right, so Paul, could you rehearse for us what a delay until the next school board meeting
You could also call a special meeting.
or especially, what would the delay benefit or detriment this discussion?
I don't have an answer to that. I'm not sure if maybe one of the other, Bob or someone else could jump in with that.
We need to have a special meeting now, Mr. Brown.
Like Harry's the contractor.
At this point, if you postpone this as much as a month, this work will be done in early 2023. It's not imminent, it's not something that needs to be acted on immediately.
It doesn't affect, it won't affect the schedule. What we have to make sure through the general contractor is that it doesn't affect the cost.
Well, that
We have
helps.
to get him to agree that he holds that number that he gave us.
Well, you'd be doing
for an
that
additional
anyway.
30 days.
You'd be doing that whether they were voting on it tonight or not.
Yeah, and Doug, you had mentioned the date for the proposed installation of floors, 2020.
It would be in the winter of 2022, 2023.
Okay.
Right, so that helps temper our timing. So again, my question is, what are our next steps now?
We would reach out to the contractor, like Harry's.
And we would confirm the price, he's given us that price.
Yeah.
So we're not giving a price other than what he gave us. Tell him he's gotta hold that price and agree to hold it for 30 days, which is typical, unless the industry has a price increase, which has already come and passed. So, yeah, take the deliberate actions, get this approved, and then
Let's remember, they would have to do that if you were voting on it tonight. They'd still have to reach out to the contractor to see if he's gonna hold the price. So,
So we have a
Yeah,
minute.
we have some time.
We can put this
Yeah,
on
all right.
next month. Okay.
Excellent.
That helps, thanks, guys.
Meeting, tell us.
Can I ask a question? I thought last week, when we were in the cafeteria looking at all this, that this was going to appear on the agenda. I mean, even in our board docs, it was brought up. So why wasn't it? I'm just trying to figure it out. What was the oversight on
Well,
that?
first of all, that's a good question, but there were 9 of us who read
Right.
our packet and our board docs, and
No
I
one
didn't
said
see it on the agenda, and I didn't call
It
Dr.
wasn't
Short
on
and
the
say.
agenda.
Right, well, I'm saying we were all remiss in
I
not,
didn't realize the law changed.
yeah, let's set that aside for a moment. So I didn't see it on the agenda, and I didn't call Dr. Short and say, hey, we had our little demonstration. And I assume the answer might be that, although, you know, we had that demonstration, we haven't had this conversation in front of the public.
We haven't
which
had a
we've done
buildings and
now.
ground meeting until tonight, right?
Right, so we had our buildings and grounds meeting tonight to essentially discuss this issue and get everybody's input. We haven't actually gotten, I think this is what you were asking, we haven't gotten any input from people in the audience. If they have an interest, now would be their time. If not, fine. It'll be on the agenda next month. They'll have a month to weigh in with their,
and I wanna say one more thing. Mary Beth made the point. If you find after discussing this with the contractor that somehow time is of the essence, tell us and we can have a special meeting. So don't hold us out there a month and tell us, well, if we would have done it 2 weeks earlier, we would have got a better price. This board will call a special meeting if it's necessary.
all right, excellent.
Right.
I'd like to
And
look
for
at-
those individuals who kind of came in at the conclusion of the building and grounds meeting, we have examples of the vinyl tile that's at Cleveland Stewart Elementary. Now, if you hold it in your hand, it might shatter, so
So don't do it.
don't do it.
Dr. Short, are you discussing when to fix the flooring and the CSE and when,
Yeah, we'll have to get with Mr. Brown, schedule that. In all likelihood, we want to get through the project at Gateway Middle School, come back and install the floor. So I wouldn't anticipate it until maybe not this summer, possibly the end of next summer.
so that, at the end of the 22-23
Yes.
school year? Okay,
So that way we have the entire hallway, CSE fixed, ready to go for the start of the year, while we also have Gateway Middle School up and ready.
so that's not a financial concern at this
No.
moment?
Anything else on the subject, Dr. Short?
That's all I have.
All righty. So we are done with the buildings and grounds meeting. Anyone need to take a quick break? Anyone ready to go right